So this may not come as a shock to you, but I get a lot of questions from you, the viewer, usually surrounding the following topic. Should I pick this daily or that one? But the question I get more than that, if you had to be practical but still balance out your car guy side, what would you choose for a daily? It would absolutely, positively have to be this. So if I were to say Corolla, what exactly comes to mind? Go ahead, say it. Your grandmother's car, boring, something that's reliable, practical, but not exciting. Granted, it was many years ago. We had things that were Corollas that were rear-wheel drive and fun, but that went away. And then Akio Toyoda, he kind of took over the company, and when your name is on the door of a company, you can do stupid things, like taking your best-selling car ever and making it into a performance car, which is what we have here. We learned through many episodes, through 3 different grades, that it was a magnificent surgery. But as a recap, what exactly is this? Well, it's a Corolla hatchback. They rip out the 4-cylinder engine and they give you a 3-cylinder engine. They add a turbocharger. They take the equation from a Yaris in Europe, and it has 300 horsepower. That goes to all 4 wheels, and the only transmission one could have is one with 3 pedals. That is only a small microcosm of the aspects that make this thing, I want to say in the immortal words of Miles Davis, a bitch's brew, but it really is something more positive than that. But that's kind of the force that this thing has. Now, enough of me extolling the virtues of something I've already told you I would spend my own personal money on. Rather, today we have to answer a completely different question. Can one live with a Corolla, this Corolla, one very different in execution, in a place like this, a large American city, on a daily basis? Now, before we answer that question and jump behind the wheel, a favor, you know what I'm going to ask here. Do all the YouTube things, subscribe, notifications, like, leave a comment, but most importantly, share these episodes with your friends on all your socials, because the algorithm, it ain't going to change until you interact with it. Arigato gozaimasu. So a bit of a refresher from the last time you and I drove one of these things. They are lightweight, 3,268 pounds, or depending on how you express your weights and measures, 1,482 kilograms. With that, in town, it was great on the track, but around town, its personality is perfectly suited to living in a big city because you have all the extra power. Granted, the torque isn't exactly what you'd expect from a 4-cylinder, but you'd never get behind the wheel of this thing and say, oh my God, that's definitely a 3-cylinder. Most people who have driven these things and have never experienced one of these things before, they say, I can't believe that's a 3-cylinder. And so we come to the discussion of reliability and maintenance. Now, one look at the badge and one would think that wouldn't be a very long discussion, but then we have to take into account a couple of factors. Number 1, 3 cylinders. Number 2, a turbocharger. And number 3, all of that wants to redline at something like 7,000 RPM. You put all of that together with a car in its first year of production, and you would think that would spell disaster. But then I refer you back to the badge and then add in another fact. It's not really the first year of production for that engine just in the US. You see, that engine has been in production for a couple of years, as many of you know, in the GR Yaris. It is the same engine, and they basically have bomb-proofed it over there. But something tells me when you build something crazy like this, you have more people looking at you. You're basically creating more of a target on your back. So I would go so far as to saying that the folks at Toyota put more engineering in the reliability of this than other Toyotas. Now, yes, one could accuse me of theorizing, but if we think back to when this car first came out, we spent a lot of time with the chief engineer, both on and off camera, and he was very transparent that the CEO of the company did spend more time looking over his shoulder with this project than any other project he had worked on before at Toyota. And yeah, he looked like he was 3 years old, but he worked there for like 25 years. So this is my very long-winded way of saying I have spoken to my moles inside of Toyota dealerships, Toyota North America, as well as my many friends who own these things, and I have not found a stitch of trouble. So I'm going to turn the episode around to you guys. Those of you guys that own these, have been driving these things ideally for a year or more, what have your experiences been? Let me know in the comments below, because I'd love to know, being this is a car I love so much in a more practical way. One of the big aspects we learned when we drove this thing on the track was the transmission. It was very well paired with this 3-cylinder engine, where the two work in conjunction with each other are fantastic. Even on the track, I would argue better out here. On the track, the Morizo, you really need that one because of the way they made the changes in the two working in conjunction. You get a little bit more torque there. Here, you don't notice that need as much because all you're doing is moving in and out of traffic around town. Okay, now let's put aside all of that and understand that suspension, or more accurately, its impact on driving around town. Anybody that's driven a Corolla, and many of you have, they're very easy to drive around town. This, you notice the difference. If one has a problem with stiff ride quality, this ain't your daily driver. Now, yeah, you and I could argue back and forth. Should we even be nitpicking about pedantic details like this when Toyota's been kind enough to give us a car like this? Probably not. I would argue in this like middle level model, maybe you do the heavier steering. I don't know. But overall, the big learning here was this. How does the suspension setup translate from the track to the road? The fear was it would be punishing, it wouldn't work around town, and that obviously is not the case. Now it's time for you and I to have that conversation, the conversation about money. When you take into account the most obvious facts, the fact that it's a Toyota and that it's a Corolla, one would think it ain't that expensive. And if you think about the performance world, it really isn't. The most basic one's about $35,000, $36,000. This one's about $45,000. And then there's the Morizo, which is just over $50,000. Now the way this one sits here with the destination handling from the same plant that made the LFA, that's $1,095 in destination handling, which brings this to just over $46,000. To be pedantic, $46,476. Not a hell of a lot of money in the grand scheme of things. Now, I had a theory when these things first came out. At least half of the first year's production, people were buying to flip, and I don't think I was particularly far off. If you take a look at Bring a Trailer over the past year or so, or other auctions, you see many of them. In fact, the first ones, they went for a couple of bucks. Like the most famous one was 001 of 200 Morizo, went for something like $98,000. Then we saw some of them selling around $60,000. Now, for the most part, these are selling for MSRP on the resale market. So put another way, it's a car one could buy and you don't lose money. Now, a huge provision to that statement. That's as of March 1st, 2024. You and I both know as more of these hit the market, the prices will start to come down, supply and demand. That's already happened to the Civic Type R, which I would say is the most direct competitor to this thing. Those also around $45,000 US. Those are starting to sell on auction sites at least for about $2,000 to $3,000 below MSRP. And remember those, they started to go south faster than these because remember there was no Morizo to kind of bring everything up. So long and short of the story, this reinforces the very old adage, buy it because you love it, not buy it because you're going to make money on it. Okay, it's that time. The time we get to the stuff that annoys you. Number one, I gotta bring it up, most important. That is the worst horn on the planet. Come on, this is a serious performance car. Who cares if it says Corolla on the back? This is unacceptable changer. Then something really, really, really pedantic. If I'm driving this thing around town, let's say I'm going slow in traffic, I want to relax a little bit. There's like no armrest. It's super small. It's not a big deal to me. However, friends have had in the car. It's the first thing they complained about. You'll be happy to know that I threw them out and never let them in the car again. And then second, inside, something I'm surprised about, wireless CarPlay. I didn't know that about the car because last time we drove it, all we did was focus on the track. But now that I've seen it actually has wireless CarPlay, kudos. Also, it has, to complement that, this one is the fancier, really middle model, but it has some bits. It's got heated seats and a heated steering wheel in a Corolla. That is magnificent. Then we have to get to the elephant in the room, the fuel economy. Now, yes, Corollas, they're kind of known for being efficient, right? I would expect anywhere between mid-20s to 40s for regular Corolla, hybrids more than that. This, they call it for anywhere between 21 and 28, at least the US government, with an average of 24. The way you and I have been driving this thing, haven't been doing that well, but not terrible, believe it or not. I've been doing somewhere between 19 and a half and 20 and a half driving it around town. So rather than ending this episode with the normal question, what have we learned today? Instead, I'm going to share a true but rather sad story. So yes, I kicked off this episode by sharing with you that I would absolutely daily one of these things. That wasn't a complete line of crap, because when these first came out, when I first drove them, I absolutely wanted one so bad that I tried to call in every single favor to get one. Now, of course, you know me, I have all the practicality of a 3-year-old, so I didn't want this one or the Core. I wanted the Morizo. And no matter who I spoke to, I called dealers, I spoke to Toyota, there was just nothing happening. Basically, you can't win them all. But now that I've spent more time with this one in my daily routine, I want one even more. But I still probably want the Morizo with the stupidity of no back seat and the roll cage. But that's where we get to the wish list. And here are a couple of things. The shifter is not bad. I just think it could use something different. It's not rubbery, maybe a shorter shifter, a more solid feeling shifter. I want the feel of like a Miata in there and this otherwise magnificent thing. And then I'm gonna ask for something that you guys, you know what I want, and you're probably gonna laugh at me, but I want a sunroof. This is a daily, I get it, 3,268 pounds. We've taken out weight from the top of the car, that's great, but it's still a car I'm gonna use on a daily basis. I'd like at least the option for a sunroof. I get it, not on the Morizo. This is the point of the episode. I turn around to you guys to opine in the comments below, or via our social media, MotoManTV all word, MotoManTV all word, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And with that, if you found this format of value, I would highly suggest you check out our entire playlist of Living With episodes. It's not just ridiculous Toyotas or even regular cars. Sometimes we do EVs, sometimes we do plug-ins, and sometimes we do sports cars. You can check out that playlist here. Until I see you in the next episode, bis später.